Good afternoon. Welcome to Trail Talk. We're so glad you could join us today. I'm Edie,
And I'm Mary.
and we are live at the Chisholm Trail Heritage Center in Duncan, Oklahoma. Mary is already in front of the camera.
I will be here for the
Bailey is
duration.
here to help us today.
Gang's all back
The
together.
gang's all here. That's right. And so let's just start talking about our Oklahoma State symbols and emblems today. The state fish and the state fiber, and it's not a fiber that you eat. So I'm just going to give you that little, I guess the state emblems aren't worried about whether you're regular or
Right,
not in your suggestions. So
They're not regulated. They're not giving us.
I'm
one
sorry if
proposal
that was too
today.
much information. So let's get in here because I love fishing.
I know you're a fisherman or
I
a fisherwoman or
am.
a fisherman. I don't.
Fishing is one of my favorite things to do, and so I'm really excited to talk about this fish. Although I have to tell you that I don't know that I have ever caught one of these
Things
white
that's
bass or
everywhere.
sand
I was
bass.
like,
Yeah, I mean, like I might have, but mostly I think about like a largemouth bass,
Yeah.
is more,
more prominent around
Uh-huh.
this area.
well, at least where I've been fishing.
You're
Let's
fishing
just
pole?
say that, yeah. Because these guys, I mean, we'll get into it, but it seems like it's got to be a little bit cool.
Yeah, that seemed cool. The temperatures that we're talking about.
Yeah, yeah. So anyway, the white bass, also known as AKA sand bass, we could call him Sandy, was adopted as our state fish in 1974. And according to the Oklahoma Department of Wildlife Conservation, which might be one of my favorite Twitter accounts that I follow, shout out to the Wildlife Department of Wildlife Conservation. They have, whoever's running that is great, right, Bailey?
Mhm.
Their humor is amazing. Anyway, according to them, white bass are native to the state and survive on a diet of minnows, shad, crustaceans, and insects. They just eat a little bit of everything.
That's right. It's around.
Yeah. So I will tell this story. I have a few fishing stories. I'm sure you're not going to be surprised. But back when I was like middle school age, we used to go to Lake Ellsworth, which is over by Elgin. Okay. And we just spent days there during the summer. And my dad and uncles had trot lines, and the shad would run. And when they did, I mean, we just kind of wait on the edge of the shore, and the shad would run, and they're small fish, and when they hit the water, they'd be shiny, and there'd just be like this big area where all this action is happening all over the top of the water. And I mean, all you got to do is put your line out there. You didn't even really have to bait the hook, and they just hit that shiny hook, and you could pull it
right back.
And they were using them for bait for the trot line.
Oh,
But the smaller shad are what these bass really like. Yeah, and they'll kind of talk about that more. Interesting comment that even though this is a native fish, it's native to Oklahoma.
right. It wasn't found here a lot
Yeah, it was, well,
until
they started making all the conservation lakes, which, we've had a Trail Talk episode about that. The reason all of these man-made lakes exist in Oklahoma is to have water sources for communities. That's one of the main reasons, and to control flooding
right.
in areas.
Right.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
recently.
exactly. And so anyway, the more, I'm guessing, I don't know if there were natural waterways that fed these
Kind of a little
lakes.
Tributary.
A tributary, or if they were moved from one of these naturally occurring water sources, and
just
and
transported.
put in those lakes or conservation reservoirs. But either way, I thought that was an interesting thing. So if you look at the physical features of this
White
fish,
bass
the
here.
white bass, yeah, which is often
Mistaken
with,
for-
well, or they're hybrid
Oh, like
with the
mixed
striped
yeah.
bass. And I think those are the ones that they find a lot in, the stripers. That's what they fish for at Lake Texoma. People go striper fishing. I think that that's what those are. Anyway, so they have these faint lines that are unbroken. And so they'll go from their head all the way back to the tail. The back is arched, so they're not the flat, the flat bodied ones like that. They have this big arch. And then inside the mouth, there's a round or heart-shaped patch on the tongue. And one thing I read called that like a tooth. So I'm guessing that the rough things, which if you've ever caught a fish, they don't have like teeth. But when you put your hand or thumb in their mouth to take the hook out, they have very rough things around here. And then inside their mouth, there's another thing that's really rough. And I mean, it can leave marks. If you catch a lot of fish and do that, you'll have like a place that's roughed. Yeah, the flesh will be all kind of scraggly, from all of that. But anyway, and then of course they have these super spiky fins up there that you have to, if they're small, you have to kind of grab them from here and push those down and hold them down so you don't get finned with those things. But anyway, so this is the basic look. It's estimated 1.5 million pounds of white bass are harvested annually from Oklahoma waters by the sports fishermen or the anglers.
That's a lot.
I am astounded by that.
That's a lot.
Yeah. I mean, a
million.
1.5 million pounds. My goodness. Anyway, due to their short lifespan and high reproductive capacity, no creel limits are imposed in some lakes. And I've told you before, I think the story, my brother was a creel clerk, CREEL, and his responsibility was to go around and just check how many fish people caught, measure them, just report. It was a basic like research project. But creel refers to the fish that you catch. That's like a creel. And so there's no limit on those.
Take what you want. Or catch what you want.
Exactly. So they usually travel in large schools. The adults prefer open water over sandy shoals during the day and shallow waters at night. A lot of these, they like moving water, this fish, especially when it's time to spawn. They're very prolific. I mean, so we're harvesting 1.5 million pounds but one female
1 million eggs.
can lay 1 million eggs.
Hello.
That's a lot. I mean,
but
I don't know.
But they don't take care of them once they're laid. And it's like,
that's true. You're on your own little.
You didn't have to keep track of all those millions.
So I wonder if there is any possible way to know in nature, in the wild, like how many of those eggs survive.
I'm gonna ask it,
and mature enough to, become a little minnow or whatever.
Do the full life cycle.
Mm-hmm.
That would make sense as to why they could get 1.5 million pounds.
Right, but I hadn't even thought about that. They spawn at random over weeds, debris, rocks, so they don't have to have like a particular place. But here's what we're talking about, the temperature. When the water is between 50 and 55 degrees, that's when they're ready for the spawning time. That's just cold to me.
Of course, if you're if you're producing 1 million eggs,
that's
you might get a little warm.
That's true.
Warm.
So they have kind of a migration, and they'll run in thousands. And so they're like the shad run I was talking about, that the white bass will kind of
follows them.
And they'll have the same sort of thing happen where they are running. And so you can see all this action on the water and then you can fish there. Yeah. It says they typically start their spawning routine before other spring spawning fishes. Longtime white bass anglers claim the white bass spawning run begins when the redbud trees begin to bloom. And one of these things says that it only lasts like 1 to 3 weeks.
Not a whole lot
So,
of time there.
yeah, I don't know if that's like your best bet on catching one of them.
Mhm.
You know, I'm sure you can catch them other times of the year, but maybe that's when the
Or
majority
yeah, them, right,
are
or harvested or.
right, right. So, I was gonna show this map. This is like,
Spawning
spawning.
areas.
Yeah. And I mean, you see Oklahoma, this is native.
Mhm.
This is where they are. So white bass are a very common fish.
Yeah.
They're, all over.
Definitely
this
not
part of
the
the
kind
US.
of extinction problem
No,
going on.
no, absolutely, yeah, catch as many as you want. But anyway, this is kind of a nice map to show us some of that information. People, you can catch these from shore or from a boat,
Mhm.
either way.
And lots of different techniques of doing that.
Yes,
Within
yes,
that.
exactly. So, I think this next one is, oh, no, I was showing like a minnow, so you can see that, this one's just, I mean, I don't know how
I
old
mean, it's only
comparatively.
three fingers right
This
there.
is still, yeah, pretty small,
Mhm.
and this is big, and the arch up here hasn't fully developed
Mhm.
yet, but you can see that the
Lines
lines
distinct right there.
going all the way across.
Mhm.
Can't see its mouth to see for sure, but anyway, I thought that was an interesting, just to give us an idea. So
Right.
this is a minnow. Now, I don't know if white bass eat white bass minnows,
Right.
or if they eat minnows of other fish, but you know, a minnow is really just a baby fish.
Right.
It's not like a
Certain breed,
species, yeah, or a fish, and so, I don't know. So here's, one or someone's idea of the different things you can use, different
lures
lures,
that can be used to catch those.
to, catch. And I like to use a good salt crawl. I like to use these worms also with the little wiggly tails on them. I like to use a nice chartreuse. That's usually my go-to is chartreuse. Which is more yellow. It's like that yellow right there. And I like to use a chartreuse worm. Sometimes there's a shorter worm. Oh, here's like a salamander. That's another one that I like to, oh, here we go. This shorter worm right here.
Mhm.
I like to use like a chartreuse with like a red tail or a dark green tail on it. And they said red and chartreuse were good for,
Right, it said-
lures like that.
Yeah, in the clear waters, try silver blue lures with dark black backs, like black, green, and blue. If the lure is dual colored and stained or muddy, try the chartreuse in the red pattern.
Yeah, and so these are like your shad mimicking
Lures there.
lures. Yeah, this one is a little bit more of a, so it's got a weighted head on it. And so you don't have to add any weights or whatever, and you throw it, and you just kind of, you're just,
Mimicking like
yeah, it's just kind of going through the water, you know, you'll just pull and
continuous
turn a
type
few
thing.
times, yeah. These, because of the way they're made, you know, they'll do different things in the water. So anyway, I mean, this one looks like a frog. If you'll remember the frog lesson, the bullfrog
Who
from
could forget
last
the frog?
week, yeah.
Stay with me.
Yeah, anyway, see, these guys are the silvery color. I don't know, that one right there, that one might be for a clear water. That one seems really big, though. One recommendation was like 1 to 2 inches, because even the larger bass prefer a 1 to 2
Right.
inch size shad. So, anyway, it says, keep it as a steady retrieve speed, you know, you don't want to let it go too fast, you just kind of give it a pull and, you know, keep it going. Then you can use live worms, minnows, or shad, actual shad, on a small to medium sized bait hook with a 12-inch leader. So you've got your, and have a barrel swivel and an 1 ounce egg weight, and so you put that down there so you're closer to your hook. So, you know, it'll fly out, and then you'll get this with it, which is the thing that you want to have, yeah, with your, mostly you'll do that from the boat, though. they recommend that. There are some topwater lures. I'm not that good with topwater. Cause the way you have to pull
Pull
it,
on it.
yeah, and try to make it kind of jump and look like one of those little insects on
Mhm.
top of the water.
Yeah, how they kind of just.
Yeah, I'm not as good with one of
Kind of insect
those.
driven there on
No,
your capabilities.
yeah, I'm not. I stick to what I'm good at. But this is brushy areas along banks, riffle shoals, mouths of the connecting tributaries. So again, that running
Right.
water kind of area.
Mhm.
They school. And so if you're not getting bites, just look around, move your location a little bit. There'll be a lot of them together
Get 'em there
somewhere. Yeah. So they're great fun to catch. But they're not so big. They're not too big, so a child can easily reel one in.
Right.
Yeah, you know,
Doesn't take a big, long time.
you
or-
don't have to have
find
a
it.
big heavy duty pole or a heavyweight line. You know, you can even use bobbers
Mhm.
with them.
Mhm.
Because if they're on the bottom, you can have your bobber and then just have your worm or whatever live bait you've got hanging down towards the bottom, and that's where they're gonna be in the heat of the day. So anyway, it's, that's possible, but I mean, there's nothing like catching a fish, give you a little fight, but they're,
Thank you, work for it.
yeah, but it's fun for kids to catch. And hey, there's a big catch for you. There were so many pictures of these just large amounts of these fish that people have caught. So, when it comes to eating,
Mhm. So just put them
The
on ice
bass.
as soon as you can.
yeah, ice them down. They should have these guys on ice probably immediately, yeah. And then you're gonna, you're gonna try to fillet them. They're gonna have those tiny little bones.
Mm.
And so you're gonna have to try
Watch
to
for
get
those.
that. But the recommendation is cut away any red because it holds the strongest flavor if you don't really like that fishy flavor.
Mhm.
The quality of the meat is similar to cod, so you can do a lot of things with it.
Similar that you do with cod.
But anyway, you don't get that much meat per fish, which is probably why that takes 1.5 million pounds of it each year to satisfy people.
That's right.
But once you cooked it, or once you prepared it, it's time to cook it. Doesn't that look good? You can fry it, grill it, broil it. If you grill or broil, you're gonna wanna marinate it because it'll dry out easily, but there you go. I mean, from, I almost said farm to table, but from the,
Farm to
from
table.
the water,
Well, could have been a fish farm.
water, yeah,
Farming of the
water
fish.
to the
I-
table. The
Pond to
white,
table.
yeah,
Pond to ta- yeah,
there you go, the pond to table. That does make it seem like it'll taste bad, doesn't it?
Doesn't sound as good, no.
Yeah.
Doesn't quite.
But anyway, our state fish, the white bass or sand bass, a great fish that represents all the fun things about being outdoors and near the waterways in Oklahoma. Just
All that.
spending a morning in the summer when it's hot before it gets cool and that wind's blowing, you're just out there fishing.
It's quiet.
It's quiet. That's in the mornings, the bugs aren't as bad as they are in the
Mhm.
evenings.
Evenings.
Yeah,
Atrocious.
that's my favorite time. All right. So now we're going to talk about our state fiber. You're probably shocked. It's cotton, not whatever.
Centrum or
Yeah,
Metamucil or whatever.
Metamucil, Parallax or whatever, yeah. So this is one of the state's largest crops. It was not chosen to be our state fiber until 2021.
It hasn't been around too long.
Yeah, and shout out to a group of third graders from Frederick who saw that through. They even got to go up to the Capitol and
it was passed.
watch it be, passed through the state, the House and Senate. Such a cool experience. But cotton grown in Oklahoma provides feed for livestock, fiber for clothing, cottonseed oil for cooking, cellulose for plastic, and high quality paper for currencies. Money, money, money,
That's right.
money.
That's right.
Yeah. So,
It's like making money to make money.
that's, yes, exactly. Anyway, so cotton is just a really versatile plant.
We've talked about it before on one of
Yes,
ours.
we have. We
Right.
had a trail talk that was maybe,
Been all about cotton.
yeah, it seemed like it was. And so we have a lot of information. We're not gonna cover all of it because we did before, but just enough to be a good refresher. So with the arrival of the 5 civilized tribes, that was when cotton growing actually came to Indian territory.
Drive,
that's
that
it.
area.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And we've discussed before that the 5 civilized tribes came from the southeastern part of the United States. Some of them were plantation owners.
Mhm.
And they brought with them the African American people who were working for them. And they had them working in the cotton fields here.
Right.
And there were, I mean, some of them were thousands of acres of land
Big, big
planted
property
in
type
cotton. Yeah, but then came the Civil War. And that basically devastated cotton farms, large and small. And in Oklahoma, it's not talked about very often, but the Civil War destroyed a lot of land and property that belonged to people. There was a lot of things that happened in Oklahoma during the Civil War. It doesn't really get
Talked about
yeah.
much.
But by the mid-1870s, 10 years later, there was a recovery being made. And the opening of what became Oklahoma Territory between 1889 and 1901 led to an influx of cotton farmers, people coming from other parts of the United States as part of the land
Right.
run, the land giveaways,
Mhm.
and they came with the knowledge and the experience of
How to-
planting
How to
cotton.
take care of all this and get it
Yeah, so
properly taken.
let's raise cotton in this new place too. I mean, that it makes
Stick
a
with
lot
what
of
you know.
sense. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. So, in those days, cotton was picked by hand. It was, at one point, they picked like the cotton out of the bowl, and my dad would talk about doing that and, the thing that holds it is hard and
Like a shell.
yeah, the part that pops open
Mhm.
exactly like a
Mhm.
shell, and so it just would tear up their fingers and stuff. But whether a tenant farmer or a homesteader, they began tilling the soil and planting the crop in late April or early May.
So this time of year.
Right, yeah, exactly. This would be cotton planting time. And it was put into wagons and hauled to these locations where there were cotton gins. And that practice was done until after World War II.
Uh-huh.
So, there were approximately 300 cotton gins that processed the lint into 500-pound bales and separated the seed from the fiber. So that's the one thing is even though you pull it out of the bowl, the
Mhm.
seed
Seed's in
is
there.
still inside
It has to
the
be
cotton.
separated out.
Yeah, yeah. And
Those
there
compressing
were
plants were,
the what?
the compressing plants.
Oh, yeah, yeah. The compressing plants, they press the bale into these, the cotton into these bales, these square bale things that were really big.
Right.
Hundreds of pounds.
Yeah.
And then, those were taken to, what they call them, textile plants, which took the cotton
from-
and,
They've been compressing.
yeah, and made fabric.
Right.
Or, and then the trash, the parts of the
I mean, 'cause-
plant that's
yeah.
left on the
Because if
ground.
there's the oil,
Yeah, they get the
left.
oil probably out of the
Mhm.
seed.
the whole to mix with the livestock.
The hulls that are fed to livestock. The lint would be used to make paper. The
Mhm.
lint probably comes out of the textile process because it's part of the actual cotton. So, I mean, all of these things are going on. Of course, a nod to the invention of the cotton gin, which freed up people to not have to pull
Do all
the,
that that we just talked about.
yeah, to do all that
Can
by
you imagine?
hand. I cannot Mr. Whitney, Eli
Mhm.
Whitney.
That's right.
Thank you, sir, for taking care
I
of
was
us
like, I'm
that.
tired of doing it. Now
Yeah.
I gotta go something better.
So I can remember talking about this before, but when cotton, the price of cotton in Europe shot up to over 30
Yeah.
cents a pound. And so everyone in Oklahoma who planted cotton planted as much as they could and then some. And
Mhm.
before the harvest, the price of cotton dropped to under 10 cents. And
Yeah.
it caused a real depression. They called it an agricultural crisis of 1920 and
Mhm.
1921 here in Oklahoma. So cotton has just been a part of our economy, good and bad, for a long time. But then between 1923 and 29, cotton was the state's major cash crop, and Oklahoma was third in the
Right.
nation.
Just behind Texas and Mississippi.
Yeah, in cotton production. So it's always
Crazy to
been
think about that.
right, exactly. So advanced technology.
We go from the hand picking to.
Right. I mean, they don't even necessarily pull the cotton out of the bowls anymore. Now they snap it off. They have machines that
machinery.
snap it off, and then another machine takes it apart. But the Oklahoma Cotton Growers Association was introduced as a method for selling cotton to offset the low prices, and by the end of the 20s, 1/3 of the Oklahoma crop was delivered to the cooperative. But unfortunately, what happened in 1929, the stock market crashed,
Yeah.
the Great Depression in October of that year, probably right about harvest time.
Yeah.
For the cotton growers.
Exactly.
Commodity prices plummeted, and so there went the cotton, the reason for harvesting all of that. The Agricultural Adjustment Act of 1933, you know, that kind of helped offset farmers who'd lost a lot, that it put a cap on how much of different crops you could produce to try to manage the markets.
Right, so it wasn't
basically.
like this.
Yeah.
Constantly.
Yeah. But in Tillman and Jackson counties, which is southeast Oklahoma, they normally harvest about 50% of the state's crop by the 1980s. And Jackson County operators lived in the Lugert Altus Irrigation District. So Lake Lugert over there, what is that called? Oh my goodness. The lake by Altus,
Like Altus Luger.
yeah, well, it's called Lake Lugert, but it has another name for that whole area over there. It's kind of a state park thing. Anyway, that water, that reservoir, which is what it is, has been used now to help water or irrigate the cotton industry, or help the cotton farmers in Jackson County.
The pumps.
Yeah, with the submersible pumps, and then they had canals, and then another technology is the like giant sprinkler things,
right,
the
big crop
irrigation
sprinkler,
things
Right.
that go around in a
Mhm.
circle. Anyway, after World War II, just like every other industry, technology has had major
Impact on
impacts.
everything.
Just improving the way everything is done. One of the most interesting statistics said equipment coupled with mechanical pickers reduced the growing and gathering of an acre of cotton from 150 down to 6.5 man hours by 1970. I have to wonder how much, lower that is now even, but 6.5 man hours per, yeah, that's 150 to 6.5. That's just crazy.
Yeah.
Anyway, scientists at Oklahoma State Agricultural Experiment Station, this is another way technology has
Improved.
yeah, has improved, the crops is by, making them, drought was resistant or
The-
disease resistant,
Weeds and insects.
yeah,
and-
boll weevil, help with, all of that kind of
So
stuff.
if you have them planted, they're not destroyed by something that's, you can't control.
Exactly, yeah. So, great
That is a
picture.
great picture. I was gonna say, that's a great picture.
This
with our little
just
windmill
an
in the back.
awesome picture or what? So in 2021, Oklahoma ranked among the top cotton producers in the United States. Now remember, back in, when was that, the 30s, the 20s, we were like third in the
Mhm,
nation.
mhm.
Okay, yeah, we're not that high now. We're sixth. Or no, it's our sixth most valuable commodity overall. So cotton has fallen off as far as
Not one of the highest producing. things
yes.
In the state.
yeah, I mean, there was one time like 3/4 of the state was planted
Covered in
in
plant.
cotton
Mhm.
or something.
Mhm.
But now, in 2021, the industry's value in the state exceeded 284 million. And it was the sixth most valuable commodity and the third most valuable crop in Oklahoma. Undoubtedly, it is an essential component of Oklahoma's economy. Now, that is actually down from 2018 when the cash receipts were over 350 million. So it's about a $70 million
Mhm.
difference.
Mhm.
2021, I mean, that was right after COVID. Maybe that had something to do with it.
Could have possibly, everything fell.
Yeah,
And, you
Yeah,
know,
so, I don't know for sure, but, so I'm gonna close this out with a little, some words
Words about-
from, a friend, someone I actually know. His name's Matt Mueller. He and his wife Kelly live out by Altus, kind of Bessie area, I believe. They farm 1,800 acres and plant between 800 and 1,000 of it in cotton every year.
Okay.
They have a dry land yield and a wet land yield where there is one area that they irrigate, the other they don't. And so one, produces more.
Right.
Matt is very knowledgeable and educated and experienced. He uses all the resources made available
Mhm.
through the agricultural industry
Right.
leaders in
Mhm.
Oklahoma.
Mhm.
He says, every farm is unique. I have mapped and precisely pulled soil samples for variable rate application of crop nutrients according to a prescription tailored to my farm. And
His
so,
specific area, his specific soil and makeup.
yes, and so he'll plant one season of cotton and then he'll come back and plant something else in that field that will, instead of cotton's taking
All those
all of the nutrients that
Mhm.
cotton needs,
Mhm.
sorghum
Leaving
or
nothing
wheat
left.
or something will put other nutrients back, and those plants will use different nutrients so that that field is ready for
Depleted,
cotton
right.
the next year. I mean, I love all of that and
That's
how
crazy though, to think
Yeah.
how you can do that.
agriculture being so important in
Science.
Oklahoma. Yes, all of the science, all of that research and everything, and just how great that is that all of that is available to farmers
Right.
to make the most
Right.
of their,
Of their property and what's their,
yeah.
specific to their property.
Yeah, so he says there are technologies out there for us to take advantage of and improve our harvest. We just have to be willing to do what all other growers have done before us. He's a fourth generation cotton farmer in Jackson County.
Mhm.
And so he says we have to do what they've done before us, adapt as the industry changes, which is what we talked about.
Mhm.
All the ups and downs, the economy
Go with the flow
affecting,
type thing.
right, whatever the price is in Europe versus what, what the markets are gonna
And what's
do.
going on.
Yeah, so cotton is Oklahoma's state fiber, and it's just cool to learn about all of these things. I love all that. So thanks for watching today. Tomorrow, the new president and CEO of the Chamber of Commerce here in Duncan is going to be here. Her name is Kelly Arnold. Yeah. And I talked to her over email, but I had a chance to meet her face to face on Monday. So she's really excited to come and talk to us and give us all a chance to get to know her a little bit. So be sure and watch tomorrow,
3
and
o'clock.
yeah, at 3 o'clock, we will be here. So until then, happy trails.